All right,
Yeah.
I'm not reaching for anything. Both hands right here. You can see that. Let me explain. This is my place, that's my vehicle, and I just need you to
Keep
listen
talking.
for a second.
There's nothing in that truck. No weapons, no crime.
Officer Derek Wolf believed he understood perfectly what was happening before him. A quiet Saturday morning, an affluent neighborhood, where expensive homes lined up behind perfectly manicured lawns. And in the midst of that scene, a black man was loading large bags into a black SUV. In Wolf's mind, the picture snapped together instantly. No verification needed. No questions needed. No context needed. Black man. Nice neighborhood. Bags in a car. Burglary in progress. In 9 years in the police uniform, Wolf had made dozens, perhaps hundreds, of similar stops. He prided himself on his proactiveness, on his ability to see what others missed, on an instinct he believed had never betrayed him, never disciplined, never challenged, and in Wolf's own mind, never wrong. That morning, as his patrol car slowed down on Ridgewood Drive, Wolf saw no man getting ready for work, no homeowner, no family, no normal life. He saw only a man who didn't belong here. And for Officer Derek Wolf, that was enough to turn a peaceful morning into the biggest mistake of his entire career. The man Officer Derek Wolf had just sentenced had no idea his peaceful morning was about to end in handcuffs. His name was Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Smith, a name not found in criminal records, not on any suspect list, but etched in the top-secret military files of the United States Navy. Marcus had served this country for 16 years. He was a veteran Navy SEAL, having served 3 stints in Afghanistan and Iraq. He had led teams into areas where a small mistake meant death. He had brought his comrades back from missions few outside the military knew of. On his chest was a bronze star, recognizing his bravery in combat. On his body were wounds marked with purple hearts, the true price of war. But that Saturday morning, Marcus wasn't on the battlefield. He was standing in front of his own home, the house he bought 3 years ago, after being promoted to senior chief, the house where he lives with his wife, Denise, a middle school principal, and their 2 children, an ordinary family in a neighborhood they believe is safe. Marcus didn't steal. He didn't sneak around. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just preparing for a 2-week training camp. The bags Wolf saw contained his uniform, his combat gear, the boots that had accompanied Marcus through 3 battlefields. On the SUV was a SEAL badge, a veteran's emblem, a small American flag behind the rear window. It was all there, clear, open. But Officer Derek Wolf didn't see a soldier. He only saw the skin color. And that's the most dangerous gap in this story. 9:27 a.m. Officer Derek Wolf's patrol car slowly turned onto Ridgewood Drive and stopped right in front of Marcus Smith's house. The engine hummed softly for a few seconds, enough to break the quiet of the neighborhood, which was usually only used to the sounds of lawnmowers and birdsong in the morning. Marcus heard the car and instinctively turned his head. 16 years in combat had taught him one thing: always be aware when someone is approaching. He saw the police car, saw the man in uniform inside, and in an instant, he knew his morning was about to take a different turn. Wolf got out of the car. The body camera was activated. The camera captured his quick, decisive steps. Wolf's right hand resting on his holster, a posture not for a casual conversation. It was the posture of someone who had decided to escalate the situation. Marcus immediately turned completely around, taking his hands off the car. Both hands raised to shoulder level. A familiar gesture. Calm. No abruptness. No creating any reason for the situation to spiral out of control. Step away from the vehicle. Wolf commanded, his voice loud. echoing down the street. Marcus obeyed immediately, taking 2 slow steps back. "Put your hands where I can see them." "I am," Marcus replied, his voice even, neither high nor low. "Officer, I am Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Smith, United States Navy. This is my home. I am preparing for work." He spoke clearly, word by word, as he always did in far more dangerous situations. He knew how to keep things under control. Wolf didn't respond. He just stared at Marcus, his gaze unwavering. "Stay where you are," Wolf continued, taking another step forward. The distance between them narrowed. The personal space vanished. And in that moment, the body camera captured a crucial truth. This dialogue didn't begin with a question, but with an assumption deeply ingrained in the mind of the person holding the gun. Marcus kept his arms raised, his body straight, each breath carefully controlled. He had been in situations where a single wrong move could mean someone never to return home. He wouldn't let that happen in his own backyard. "My wallet is in my back pocket," Marcus said slowly. "I have my driver's license and military ID. If you're allowed, I'll take them out slowly." Wolf nodded slightly, his hand still on his gun holster. The body camera captured the slightest movement as Marcus, with 2 fingers, pulled out the old leather wallet, opened it, and held it forward. On it was his Department of Defense military ID, clearly printed with photo, name, and rank: Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus A. Smith, United States Navy. Wolf glanced at it. Less than 2 seconds. The camera captured the moment he flicked his hand, as if he had just seen something utterly worthless. "Anyone can buy these things online," Wolf said coldly. "There's no proof of anything." Marcus paused for a breath. "Then you can see my driver's license," he said, his voice still restrained. "The address on it is this one." He produced his California driver's license. The same name, the same face, and the same address, 4127 Ridgewood Drive, the numbers clearly visible behind him on the front of the house. Wolf glanced at it, then turned away. "It could be fake," he replied. "We got a call about a suspicious person loading things into a vehicle in this area." "Suspicious in what way?" Marcus asked, unable to hide the confusion in his voice. "I'm standing in front of my house, getting ready to go to work. I'm a Navy SEAL." He gestured slightly toward the SUV, where the military bags, tactical gear, and SEAL insignia remained within easy view. Wolf took another step, his voice cutting. "What I see," he said, "is you becoming defensive. An innocent person doesn't need so much explanation." And in that moment, the body camera captured the most important thing. The truth had been fully presented, but it had been denied from the start. The atmosphere in Marcus's yard grew thick. It was no longer a test. This was a confrontation whose outcome seemed predetermined. Marcus took a deep breath. He could feel his heart pounding, not from fear, but from the absurdity unfolding before him. 16 years in the military had taught him to distinguish between real danger and man-made danger. And right now, the greatest danger was the stubbornness of the man before him. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice low and firm, "I have done everything you asked. I raised my hands. I provided my documents. I explained everything clearly. You haven't told me which laws I violated." Wolf didn't answer the question. Instead, he turned his head when he heard a car behind him. A second patrol car had just pulled up. Officer Tanya Reeves stepped out, her body camera beginning to record. The second shot opened up a broader picture: the house behind Marcus, the clearly visible address numbers, the military insignia on the SUV. Revere's watched for a few seconds. Confusion was evident on her face. "Derek," she said, her voice lower. "Have you verified the address?" Wolf didn't turn to look at her. "I don't need to verify anything," he snapped. "I know what I'm seeing." The words hung in the air, and Reeves was silent. Wolf turned back to face Marcus, his hand pulling the handcuffs from his belt. The metal gleamed in the sunlight. "Turn around," he commanded. "Hands behind your back." Marcus stood motionless for a brief second, long enough for the camera to capture the disbelief in his eyes. "What are you arresting me for?" Marcus asked. "I'm not resisting. I'm not violating anything. I'm in my own home." Suspicious activity and failure to comply with lawful orders. Wolf replied, his voice monotonous, as if reciting a poem. Marcus glanced at Reeves. She said nothing, but that look was a silent plea for help. She turned away. Marcus turned his back, slowly placing his hands behind his back. As the handcuffs closed, a clear click echoed on both cameras. In that instant, right in front of his own home, Marcus Smith, a Navy SEAL, a war survivor, officially became a manhunt for an assumption that had never been verified. The metallic click of the handcuffs seemed to awaken the entire Ridgewood Estates neighborhood. Doors began to open. Neighbors stepped out onto their porches, initially curious, then stunned. Body cameras captured their shocked faces as they saw a man handcuffed right in front of their house, in broad daylight, without screaming or resisting. A man with silver hair, standing tall, strode quickly across the street. Each step carried an air of authority familiar to those who had worn military uniforms. "What the hell is going on here?" he shouted. "Sir, step back," Wolf replied, his voice strained. "This is police business." The man did not back. He looked directly at Marcus, then back at Wolf. "I am Colonel Richard Hayes, retired United States Marine," he said, each word heavy as stone. "And the man you're handcuffing is my neighbor, a Navy SEAL. He lives here." Wolf was silent. "I've known Marcus Smith for 3 years. Hayes continued. "I've seen him loading his training gear countless times. The whole neighborhood knows him. So why are you arresting him?" Wolf turned away. No answer. No explanation. And then, a silver car sped down the street, braking sharply. The car door swung open. "Marcus." Denise Smith's voice rang out, broken by panic. She ran toward her yard, her eyes barely able to comprehend what was happening before she saw her husband in handcuffs. "That's my husband," Denise screamed. "That's my house." Officer Reeves stepped out, his hands raised reflexively. "Ma'am, please stop." Denise trembled as she pulled out her phone. The body camera captured her hands shaking as she dialed the number. "They're taking Marcus." She sobbed into the phone. "Right outside our house. Please, please, come here." In that peaceful courtyard, under the bright Saturday sun, a real storm was brewing. 9:52 a.m. The patrol car rolled away from Ridgewood Drive, leaving behind a deathly silent neighborhood. Marcus sat in the back seat, his hands still cuffed behind his back. No resistance. No further words. The body camera captured his blurry reflection in the rearview mirror, the eerily calm face of someone who had learned to endure in silence. The ride lasted over 20 minutes. No music. No conversation. Only the sound of tires and Marcus's steady breathing in the cramped space. For someone who had been imprisoned in forward bases in the middle of the desert, this wasn't fear, but humiliation. At Zecha Shaptesprez a.m. The car stopped in front of the Riverside Police Department. Marcus was led into the processing area. Fluorescent lights shone down, cold and emotionless. As Wolf removed the handcuffs, the camera captured the deep red marks on Marcus's wrists, the physical evidence of a wrong decision. The officer on duty was Patricia Delgado, a woman who had done this job for over 15 years. She began entering the information mechanically, as she had done hundreds of times before. But then, her fingers slowed and stopped. No criminal record. No prior offenses. Not a single traffic violation. Delgado frowned, continuing her check. Then she looked up. Serving officer. She read aloud. Senior Chief Petty Officer. United States Navy. The room fell silent. She scrolled through a few more lines. Bronze Star. Purple Heart. Special Operations Training Unit. Delgado looked at Wolf, then back at Marcus, then back at the screen. He is the legal owner of the house on Ridgewood Drive, she said slowly. 3 years. Complete tax records. She turned completely around, looking directly at Wolf. Derek, she asked, her voice low but sharp. Can you tell me what this person did? Wolf opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time since that morning, the system began to see what he had deliberately chosen to ignore. No one answered Patricia Delgado's question right then. Instead, a series of quiet but decisive actions began behind the closed doors of the Riverside Police Department. Body cameras were seized, data was downloaded, and an inevitable review was conducted. About 45 minutes later, Sergeant William Patterson emerged from the surveillance room. His face was pale, as if he had just watched a scene no one wanted to be the main character in. He found Derek Wolf in the break room. The hallway security camera recorded the conversation through the glass. There was no sound, but body language spoke volumes. Patterson leaned in, pointing his finger directly at Wolf's chest. Wolf took a step back, his hands raised in a defensive reflex. Patterson turned, pointing toward the door. The message was unspoken. This was out of control. Meanwhile, Marcus Smith sat alone in the detention room. 4 cold, bare walls. No clock. No telephone. Only time dragging on slowly and heavily. 4 hours passed. No charges. No record. No attempt at legalization. At doi doazech she tre p. M. The door opened. Sergeant Patterson himself arrived. You are free, he said, avoiding Marcus's gaze. We apologize for the inconvenience. Inconvenience. Marcus didn't reply. He stood up and walked out to the reception area. Denise was waiting, her eyes red. A civil rights lawyer's voice came through the phone. Marcus took his wife's hand and stepped out into the afternoon sun. Right in the Riverside Police Department parking lot, Marcus Smith pulled out his phone and made his first call. Sir, he said when the other end picked up, I need to report an incident. I was just illegally arrested at my home. On the other end of the line, his commander was silent for a few seconds. Then he replied curtly, We're not going to let this slide. And from that moment, the story was no longer about a Saturday morning. Within 48 hours of that call, the gears of another system began to turn. The Navy's legal department opened a case. JAG collected testimony. The entire incident was documented not as a mistake, but as an unlawful arrest of an active duty service member preparing for duty. But Marcus Smith didn't stop at the military channel. He wanted civilian accountability. Through a JAG introduction, Marcus met Patricia Okonkwo, a civil rights attorney who had spent nearly 2 decades pursuing police abuse cases across California. Her office was filled with old newspaper articles, verdicts that had shaken the city. After hearing the story, Okonkwo said just one thing: "We need their cameras." The next morning, she submitted a formal request: all body camera footage, 911 call logs, and the entire complaint history of Officer Derek Wolf. The city of Riverside hesitated. They dragged their feet. They invoked procedure. But 3 weeks later, a hard drive arrived at Okonkwo's office. 30 gigabytes of data. And in that pile of documents, an undeniable truth began to emerge. In the last 3 years, Derek Wolf had stopped and questioned 47 black people in Riverside's affluent neighborhoods. Not a single case resulted in a legal arrest. Not a single case uncovered a crime. 47 approaches. Current stance of humiliation. 47 lives suspected simply because they didn't look like they belonged there. Okonkwo spread the files out on the boardroom table. Timelines. Locations. Results. "This wasn't an accident," she said softly. "This was a pattern, and they knew." With each piece of data revealed, Marcus Smith's case is no longer just an individual story. It has become evidence of a system deliberately turning a blind eye. The federal lawsuit was filed just 8 weeks after Marcus Smith was handcuffed in his own backyard. Smith Vistaman, City of Riverside. Officer Derek Wolf. The indictment was emotionless. It was cold, precise, and ruthless. Fourth Amendment violation. Unlawful arrest and detention. Racial discrimination. Willful psychological harm. And then came the part the city of Riverside feared most: living proof. During the testimony sessions, Patricia Okonkwo didn't need to argue. She just turned on the video. Derek Wolf's body camera appeared on the large screen. Saturday morning sunshine. The soldier was raising his hand. His military ID was presented. It was brushed aside. Okonkwo paused at the moment. Wolf glanced at the ID. "You said you couldn't verify?" she asked, her voice calm. "So, what did you just see?" Wolf hesitated. "What does that say?" she continued. Silence. United States Navy. Okonkwo answered himself. Senior Chief Petty Officer. "Can you read that?" The city attorney bowed his head. Then came the footage of Officer Reeves. Wide shot. The house behind Marcus. Military insignia. And the fateful line. "I don't need to verify anything. I know what I'm looking at." Okonkwo let the line play again. No comment. No further words. She moved to the next slide. 47 stops. 0 legal arrests. The complete picture unfolded before everyone in the room. Not a mistake. Not a moment of lack of judgment, but a dangerous habit, tolerated for too long. At that moment, the city attorneys understood. If this went before a jury, they would lose. The city of Riverside began calculating damages before the jury even saw the video. Negotiations took place behind closed doors. Initially, the offer was small, exploratory. 150 yuan. 000, immediately rejected. 300 yuan. 000, no response. 500 yuan. 000, still not enough. Patricia Okonkwo didn't need to raise her voice. She simply told the city representatives one thing: a jury won't just compensate, they'll punish. The city's lawyers understood perfectly what that meant. They pictured the courtroom scene: 12 ordinary citizens seeing a Navy SEAL, a man who had fought for his country, handcuffed in his own yard because of his race. No city wanted to put its future in the hands of that image. The final offer came one Thursday afternoon: $875. Lean. accompanied by a comprehensive reform package. They wouldn't admit wrongdoing. They never would. But the price speaks for itself. 3 days after the agreement was announced, Derek Wolfe was fired. 9 years of service ended not with an honorary hearing, but with a notice of termination. Officer Tanya Reeves received disciplinary action and was transferred to the records department. No more streets. No more split-second decision-making. 3 months later, she submitted her resignation. In her final statement, Reeves wrote, "I knew it was wrong, and I kept quiet. I couldn't continue wearing this uniform." The Riverside Police Department was forced to change home verification procedures, mandatory bias training, an independent civilian oversight board with the power to summon. A decision that lasted a few minutes had consequences that lasted for years. Marcus Smith could have stopped there. He could have received his compensation, returned to a peaceful life, resumed his training with the Special Operations Unit, and let the system mend its own cracks. Many people have chosen that path, not because they were wrong, but because they were too tired. But Marcus Smith didn't survive 3 battlefields to remain silent in the face of injustice. 3 weeks after the agreement was announced, he appeared before Riverside City Council. The room was packed with reporters, veterans, and locals. Television cameras lined up behind him. Marcus wore his ceremonial uniform. All his medals were there. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, SEAL insignia gleamed under the lights. He stood before the microphone, without needing a notepad. "I have served this country for 16 years, he said, his voice deep and steady. "I've faced enemies overseas. I've lost friends. I've sacrificed years with my family for the belief that this country represents justice." He paused. "But I was handcuffed in my own yard because a police officer saw a black man and decided I didn't belong there." The room fell silent. "This story isn't just about me," Marcus continued. "It's about black veterans who come home and are still treated as suspects. About people who do the right thing but are still treated like criminals." That evening, Marcus announced the founding of the Warriors for Justice Foundation. A large portion of the compensation money will be used to provide legal support to veterans who have been discriminated against, helping them document evidence, access lawyers, and hold the system accountable. At the Riverside Police Academy, the body camera footage from that Saturday morning became mandatory training material. Every new recruit had to watch it. No fast-forwarding, no skipping. They saw a flawed assumption. They saw an irreparable decision. And they saw the price the entire city paid. Marcus Smith returned to his job at the SEAL training unit. But now, in each training session, he added a new lesson. "You will face enemies overseas," he told the recruits. "But some of you will face others when you return home. Know your rights. Record everything. And never let anyone say that your service is worthless." Officer Derek Wolfe thought he knew what he was seeing. But the body camera saw the truth. And that truth cost the city of Riverside $875. Ling ling ling. A police officer lost his career. And a soldier turned his humiliation into a change that the entire community could not ignore.